Hey guys, it's Carly here for MFT, and today I wanted to share with you a fun way to stretch your card making supplies and get a little extra texture out of your die sets. Have you ever tried embossing with your dies? I've got the MFT Bold Bloom set, and while it's all still attached, I'm going to put it on my cardstock and run it through my die cut machine to emboss it. Now, die cut machines can all be a little bit different, so make sure that you check the manufacturer's instructions for which plates you need to use to emboss with your dies, but I used it with mine, and look how gorgeous this texture is. Now I want to add a little bit of color to this texture. So I have this scrap from where I die cut all the flowers earlier for another card, and I'm going to use it like a stencil. So I'm going to position it over the flowers, and I'm going to grab some distress inks and my blending brushes. With an intricate stencil like this, I recommend using a blending brush as opposed to a sponge blender because the brush is less likely to get stuck on the intricate bits of the stencil, so it makes it much easier to apply color. Also, since the flowers are so close together in this DIY stencil, I'm using a really small blending brush, but if you find even a small blending brush is too big, you can just grab some low-tack tape and cover up the parts that you don't want to use right now to keep from getting ink on your project where you don't want it. And one more thing about this DIY stencil. Now, I was in a really big hurry to see how this would turn out, so I didn't tack anything down, but it definitely would be easier if you tack down your card front and also your stencil so that you didn't have to hold them so carefully in place while you added the color with the blending brushes. And I love how this turned out with all of the color and the texture, even the lines from where the dies are connected in the die set embossed, and I just think adds a really cool element. It looks like it's part of the design. Now next I need a little bit of orange cardstock, so I'm ink blending some, of course, and after it dries I'm going to run it through my die cut machine with all the happy dynamics. Now once I've got the happy letters, they seemed a little too orange, so I'm adding a little bit more color with my blending brush. In a card that's all about texture, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to my letters, so I've die cut happy 3 times. I've got that first one that's got the orange with a little bit of blending on top, and then I've got 2 white ones, and I'm just using a glue pen to adhere them all together to make it a layered word. Now normally to get perfect placement of a die cut word on a panel, I would die cut that word from the panel, so then I would have a guide of where to lay the letters in. But if I run this through my die cut machine again, it will crush all that beautiful texture I got from embossing those flowers. So I had to come up with a different solution. I mean, obviously next time I'll just die cut the word first, but I didn't think of that this time. So instead I grabbed a piece of printer paper and I cut the same size as my panel. Then I'm going to die cut the happy word from that panel and use the panel as a guide. And before I use this printer paper panel as a guide to adhere my happy letters, I am going to use it as a guide to place the stamped part of my sentiment. So after placing the birthday stamp on my Misty lid, I have put my real panel in there with a piece of acetate on top. Then I can stamp onto that acetate over my panel and check and see if I like the spacing, if everything looks good. Then if it does, I can clean off that acetate, get it out of the way, ink up my stamp, and stamp again onto my panel. But if I didn't like it, it would give me a chance to fix it before I moved on and committed to actually stamping on my real panel. So now I can use that printer paper guide for what I originally intended it for, which is to adhere those die cut letters and have them be perfectly spaced. So I've just got that guide secured to my panel with a little piece of low-tack tape folded over the top, and I'm using a glue pen to adhere the letters. So as I put them in the guide, I'm kind of pulling the guide up to make sure that no part of it gets stuck behind my letter. And the guide worked really well, but I have to say again, it would have been much easier to die cut the word happy before I embossed with my Bold Blooms die. So if you're gonna make a card like this, just remember, die cut before you emboss, okay? And the final steps are to add a little bit of faux black splatter with a black pen, and then adhere this panel to a folded card. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you were inspired to craft. I hope to see you again here soon, and I hope you have a great day. Happy crafting. Thanks, guys.